Hello everyone, and welcome back to another R tutorial video. And in this tutorial video, I want to continue our discussion on how we can change the defaults and improve the appearance of our plots in R using both the base R and the GGPLOT2 package. So today I want to talk about shape. But before I get into any code, I want to sort of explain what I mean when I say shape and how we actually access different shapes in both base R and ggplot because they both use the same system. So a link to this site will actually be included in the description, but you can see here this is the tidyverse, which is the broader sort of network of packages that ggplot2 is a part of. And this graphic right here is what I want to talk about. So this works with, again, this works in both base R and ggplot2. But what this is showing you is 24 of the shape options. There are more than 24, but I would sort of advise against going beyond 24. Things start to get a little bit strange. So unless you know specifically what you're looking for, most of the common shapes you're going to want to use are going to be found really within the first 15. But anyway, so what this graphic is showing is it's showing you the options that we have for shapes, and it's showing you the number. And this number is really important because this number is how we actually access these shapes in ggplot2 and base R. For example, when we start trying to do things, if we put shape equals 4, it's going to grab the fourth shape here, or this X. If we do shape equals 8, we're going to grab the 8th symbol here, or the star. So hopefully that makes sense. I think it'll make a lot more sense when we walk through some examples. But for right now, just be aware that these are what we are talking about when we say shape, and that these numbers are how we access them. So let's look at some code. So let's talk about changing the default shape to a different shape. We're not using any variables. We're just saying we want to change from one shape to a different shape. Let's do that in base R first. So base R, single shape. So what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to scroll up here to up a ways, and I'm going to grab our base R generic scatter plot that we've been working with. If you don't have this code in front of you, I encourage you to pause the video and go either retype it or go find it in some previous notes that you have. But once you've done that, we can really quickly change the default shape to a different single shape in base R. Now you may be thinking you want to type shape, but in base R you actually use the parameter PCH. And you set that equal to a number. I happen to personally like the X's. So if we run this, what we will see, and we'll run this again down here, we will see that we've successfully managed to replace the black dots with the black X's here. So that's how you would do it in base R. Let's see how we would do it in ggplot2. So to prevent myself from making mistakes, I'm actually going to copy the ggplot code that we've been working with. And again, if you don't have this in front of you, just pause the video and retype it. And we're actually going to remove this color here because we're not working with color anymore. So before I type anything, I want to explain where I'm going to put this and why. So we have to think here. Actually, let me do single shape. We have to think here about what are we actually doing. Right? We want to use a single shape, and what that means is that we don't care about any of the data. Right? The data can be whatever it wants to be. We just want to change the shape that's used. So we have two choices. Well, actually, we have many choices, but we have two choices that make the most sense. The first would be to put it inside of this aesthetics function. The second would be to put it outside of the aesthetics function. So just to sort of cut to the chase here, we're going to want to put it outside of the aesthetic function. And the reason that is because we are not expecting this to be having anything to do with the data. right? We're not expecting the shape to be influenced by any of the variables. So we are going to put in ggplot, you actually do get to type out shape. It's kind of nice in that way. And we're going to put 4, just like before. So if we run this code, and then we run it down here again, you will see that we've successfully replaced the filled in circles with the X's. So that's if we wanted to do a single shape. Now let's assume that we want to have it based on a shape, the shape based on a variable. And I think in this particular case, it's going to be easiest to talk about ggplot first, and then go back and replicate that in base R. So within ggplot, actually we can just copy this. We can copy this. And then all we have to do is move this shape parameter inside of the aesthetic function, right? Because now we want the shape to be drawn from, or based, I shouldn't say drawn from, we want the shape to be based on a variable. In this case, let's just keep it simple and have it be based on species. All right, so if we run this, and then we run this in here, you'll see that we've done that. We have the circle now represents setosa, the triangle now represents versicolor, and the square now represents virginica. So hopefully that made sense. This is very similar to what we've seen when we were working with color. And before we do talk about base R, because base R requires a little bit more footwork, I actually want to talk about how we can do custom sets of shapes for variables. Right. So I'm going to copy this code again. So if you remember when we talked about color, right, we had the aesthetic function set up just like we do, except we had color equals species instead of shape. And then we used the plus sign and we added another layer. And that other layer was what was called a scale. And the scale controlled sort of what specific colors were used. And in this case, we're going to do something very similar, but we're going to call in a scale shape instead of color. And in this case, we want to use manual. And we want to use the values parameter. And in this case, we can specify now what specific shapes we want to use. So let's say that we wanted the setosa to be the triangle, which in that diagram was 2. We wanted the versicolor to be the X, which is 4. And then we wanted the virginica to be the kite, which is 9. So if I highlight this here and I run it, and then I run it again, you'll see that that's exactly what we've done. So now we were able to sort of fine-tune our selection of the shapes. So I'm actually going to stop this video here, and we're going to talk about how to implement this in base R in a different video. Again, it's very similar to what we used with color, but I want to make sure that we have time to go through it properly. So again, if you felt like anything was unclear, I would recommend pausing the video, go back and re-watching the parts that were confusing, and as always, please reach out.